Psychological Research BA Honours PSY 05. Hello friends, I think you must be enjoying psychology lecture because all psychology lectures are technical, scientific and to the point. In psychological research, as I told you in my previous lectures, that there are different techniques and tools which we use in the data collection. Because after research, you are to collect the data. And in that data collection, psychological tests is one of a very, very important tool to test the variables of interest. Psychological tests are used to study individual differences also. I want to measure IQ, I will administer intelligence test. I want to assess your personality, I will give personality test. I want to test your interest, know your interest, I will give the interest inventories. But in research, psychological tests are also used to measure one of the variables. For example, if I want to study the effect of personality on job satisfaction, which type of the personality has the maximum job satisfaction and which has the minimum, so I will have to assess the personality. Now, to assess the personality, one thing maybe I may interview the person, I may know the personality, I may give the questionnaire, I will know the personality, but there are some subjectivity involved in these methods. So, psychological tests will be used because they are objective and standardized. Now, when I say they are objective standardized, whenever you choose any psychological test, you should keep in mind that that test must have certain qualities, and that is, it must be reliable, it must be valid, it must have adequate norms, and whatever the age group of that you have taken in your sample, whether that test is for that age group or not. So, reliability and validity are two very important components of a psychological test. If my test is not valid, if my test is not reliable, there is no use of to taking that test to measure any variable of interest because the results will not be accurate. So, today we will talk about one of that important characteristic of a psychological test, and that is the validity. And then after defining validity, I will compare with the reliability and will try to tell that what is actually importance or what is validity. Now, let us start. The term validity refers to the truthfulness of the measurement done by the test. Various authors have defined it in its own manner. Truthfulness of the test. That means whether the test is measuring or serving the purpose for which it has been constructed. If it is serving that purpose, I will say there is a truthfulness. If it is not serving that purpose, there is no truthfulness. This was the general definition which I gave. Now, one of the very important author, important book, Guilford, he has defined validity as a test is considered to be valid if it measures what it purports to measure. That means again, what it is supposed to measure. If it is measuring that, we will say my test is valid. Now, I am here to take your class or deliver lecture on psychology. Now, I have been made to teach psychology. But instead of psychology, I start you teaching history, I start you giving lecture on political science. I say it is period of psychology, but I am delivering lecture on political science. That means I am not serving the purpose for which that period is assigned and for which I have been made to teach psychology, for I am not a valid for that. So, a test is considered to be valid if it measures what it supposed or purports to measure. There are so many definitions, I have given only two. Giesli, another very important author, in 1964, he defined validity as the term validity refers to the extent to which a test or a set of operations measure what it is supposed to measure. To be more technical sense, it can be said that validity deals with what the test scores measure and what they will predict. In this way, it can be said that an index of validity indicates the purity of the text and explains to what degree it has been diluted by the interfering error factors. Now, if you look at this definition and analyze it, every definition the message goes that if in measuring the variable, my test is not committing any error, my test is serving the purpose for which it has been made, I will say the test is valid. And if it is not serving the purpose, it is not valid. Now, sometimes the students confuse between reliability and validity. Reliability is one of the separate chapter. We will talk about what is reliability and what are the different types of reliability. But here, I want to make the difference between reliability and the validity. When you say reliability, reliability means consistency of the score, consistency, uniformity. That means scores are not changing if I administer the test on more than one occasion. If I am checking your copy, examination copy, I have given you 62 marks. You give me that copy after a month, 2 months, 3 months. If I am giving you again marks around 62, it will not be exact 62 because the human error will be there. It may be 60, it may be 64. If marks are approximately near about 62, I will say my test is reliable. I can rely upon the liable, on which I can trust. If there is a consistency, then I can trust upon that score. That is actually reliability. And validity, if it is fulfilling the purpose for which it has been made. For example, on your watch, on the watch of everybody, the Indian standard time is 9 a.m. 9 a.m. But on my watch, it is 11 a.m. Tomorrow, and your class is at 9 a.m. Tomorrow, I come to your class. In your watch, it is 9 a.m. In my watch, it is 11 a.m. Daily, 9 a.m., 11 a.m., 9 a.m., 11 a.m. That means my watch is consistent. There is not that today it is 11, tomorrow it is 2, day after tomorrow it is 3 p.m., then it is 1 a.m. No. Consistently, it is telling me 11. So, I can very well understand that 11 means 2 hours it is running fast, it is 9. My watch is consistent, so it is reliable because there is a not fluctuation of the score, but my watch is not valid. Why not valid? Because the purpose of the watch is to give correct time or incorrect time. The purpose of the watch is to give us correct time, but it is not giving correct time. Instead of 9, it is telling me 11. So, my watch is not valid, but it is reliable because it is giving consistent time. Your watch daily after 24 hours, it is giving 9 a.m. which is standard. That means it is consistent, it is reliable and it is valid because it is serving the purpose for which it has been made. So, validity means truthfulness or the purpose for which it has been made. It is noteworthy that the validity, the most important characteristics of a test, is not determined at the final stage of the standardization of a test. It is determined or influenced or is susceptible to factors operating from the very beginning of item construction stage, and therefore, a test constructor has to keep guards against all invalidating factors from the very beginning, that is from the stage of the item construction. Now, some people say that validity is determined on the later phase. No, validity actually starts building from the very first stage of the test construction. My watch is valid or not, giving correct time or not, it is not when the watch has been made. When it is in the process, the machinery is in the process, when I am assembling the parts of the watch, then right from there it will be decided that my watch will give the correct time, it will be fast or it will be slow. Similarly, my test is valid or not, it will be its you can say foundation will be built right from the very first stage, and that is item writing, whether items are proper or not, whether the items are representing the area for which you have made it. You have said that it will measure depression, whereas the items are measuring anxiety. So, how it will be valid? And in one of my lecture, I told you characteristics of a good test, where I told you that each and every item has to pass through the process of item analysis, and that item analysis will tell me that whether my item is correct or not. If the language is ambiguous, then the answers will be not proper. If my items are lengthy, it will not be proper. Words are ambiguous, everybody will interpret in their own way. If I have given so much emphasis on the grammar, comma, full stop, punctuation, then subject may not be comfortable with that. That is why Hathaway and McKinley, who are the authors of a well-known psychological test, MMPI, Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory, which brought revolution in the personality assessment, Hathaway commented somewhere, he said that for the clarity, listen it carefully, for the clarity of an item in a test, even if you have to sacrifice the grammar, do it. Don't hesitate. You sacrifice the grammar, but the item should be very, very clear. So, validity starts building right from the very first stage, that is the item writing, and item analysis tell us whether my items are proper or not. So, validity is not the last stage, it starts right from the beginning. The working concept of the trait to be measured should be clearly defined and developed. It should have an operational definition. After defining it operationally, the test constructor should translate this concept into series of properly selected objective stimuli or test items. What are the objective stimuli? In test I told you, set the items. The trait measured by a given test can be defined only through an examination of the objective sources of information and empirical operations utilized in establishing validity. Validity of a test cannot be reported in general terms. No test can be to have high or low validity in abstraction. Validity must be determined with reference to a particular use of test for which a test is being constructed. Now, how from the beginning? The concept which you are going to measure, for which you have made a test, must be, that concept must be crystal clear like water to you. It should be clear. You must define it. What is that which you are going to measure? Now, I say I want to measure emotional intelligence. Now, if I don't know what is emotional intelligence, how I will construct the items? Now, I may say emotional control, I simply see emotions. Other aspects are not clear to me. Now, if I say emotional intelligence, then I must know that in emotional intelligence, first, the person must be able to recognize his emotion. Number 2, he must be able to control his emotion. Number 3, he must able to recognize the emotion of others. Number 4, self motivation, and number 5, empathy. Now, these 5 characteristics are clear to me that these are the dimensions of the emotional intelligence, and then I must be clear what is empathy, what is its meaning, what is self motivation, what is the meaning of understanding emotion of others. If these are operationally clearly defined, then I can construct the stimuli, the test items, and the test items are proper, then my test will be valid. So, it starts from the very beginning, there is the item writing. So, this was about what is validity. Now, we will talk about types of validity. How many types a test has its validity? Now, APA, that is the American Psychological Association. This is association, very old association, which recognizes disciplines of psychology, which gives us certificates, license that we are the psychologist. They sometimes tell us the standards, that these standards must be fulfilled, like ISI marker. Now, APA Committee on Test Standards in 1952, I am talking 1952, recommended 4 types of validity. 4 types of validity. One is called predictive validity. Second is called status validity. Number 3 is content validity. And number 4 is congruent validity. Now, here I will only define it and explain you in the next para, where the second recommendation will come out the types. Predictive validity. This validity denotes correlation between the test measures and subsequent criterion measure. Subsequent means which will come later on. Concurrent, which is coming at the moment. So, predictive denotes correlation between the test measures and subsequent criterion measure. So, you have given a test, if your scores will match with the subsequent criterion, then it will be called as the predictive validity. Status validity, it denotes correlation between the test and concurrent external criterion. Concurrent means criterion available at the same time, simultaneously. You have given a test, and the criterion is available to you. It is called as the status validity. Then content validity, I will explain all in detail just now. Content validity, this validity refers to the case in which the specific type of behavior called for by the test is represented. It indicates the degree of representativeness of the content. As I told you, item analysis, item writing, I say my test is to measure anxiety, then all items must be of the anxiety. Then fourth is the congruent validity. This validity is established when the test constructor demonstrates what psychological attributes a test measures by showing correspondence between scores on a test and other indicators of the state or attribute. That means congruent construction. Now, I say, well, this concept is made of introversion, extroversion, openness. Three concepts. Now, whether my test is measuring all those three, introversion, extroversion and openness, whether how it will test later on, whether it is measuring or not, so it is called congruent. If the criteria is available later on, it is called predictive. Criteria is available simultaneously at the same time, it is status, and if we are emphasizing on the content, it is called content validity. Now, why I didn't explain in that detail, now I will do. In the test standards of educational psychological test manual prepared by educational psychological test, there was manual. Manual means a small booklet where the recommendations or the things are given. Manual prepared by joint committee, it was a joint committee of the APA, American Psychological Association. Second organization was the American Educational Research Association, and the third was National Council on Measurement in Education. So, three committees met together, APA number 1, number 2 American Educational Research Association, number 3 National Council on Measurement in Education, 1974. That was 1952, only APA. Now, it is the crux of the three organizations. The procedures to determine validity have been classified under the following three principal categories. AP told about 4 categories. This committee, a joint committee, recommended 3 types of the validity: criterion related validity, construct validity and the content validity. Now, we are coming to the criterion related validity. This type of validity indicates the effectiveness of a test in predicting an individual's behavior in a specified situation. To attain this objective, performance on the test is checked against certain criteria. For example, a direct and independent measure of that which the test is designed to predict. The criterion measures against which the test scores are validated may be obtained approximately at the same time or after a stated interval. On the basis of criterion, this test validity may be divided into 2 types. Now, they say concurrent validity and predictive validity. So, APA and American Educational Research Association and National Council on Measurement in Education in 1974, a joint committee was constituted and they recommended 3 types of the validity: criterion related validity, construct validity and the content validity. Now, what is criterion and what is predictive we will talk about. Criterion means when some criteria is available to you by which you can compare your score and you may say that is valid or not. Now, this criterion may be available at the 2 levels, concurrent and the predictive. Concurrent means if the criterion is available at the same time simultaneously, it is concurrent. If it is available after a gap of the time, it is called predictive. For example, suppose I am going to measure intelligence. I have made a test to measure IQ. Then whether my test is measuring IQ or not, how I will know? I will have to validate it. Simply I say it will not serve the purpose. I will have to empirical proof, data that well my test is actually measuring intelligence. So what I do? I go to a school and ask the teacher, you please give ranks or give marks to your students according to their intelligence. Now the ma'am or the sir has given this student is best, genius, this. Now this is a criterion. Now I administer my test. If the student whom the teacher has labeled as the genius and he is getting highest in my score test intelligence, that means actually genius, then my test is validated. This criteria is available with me at the same time. I have made a diagnostic test, personality test. I said my test will measure the mental problem. I go to the hospital, I say that I go to the psychiatrist, you diagnose and tell me. He says this is the patient of obsession compulsion, this is a patient of depression. If my test is measuring depression, then his score on the depression scale must be higher than the others. Now this criterion is available with me at the same time. This is called concurrent validity. Predictive means when the validity criterion available is after a gap of time. Now you have come for a job. Now I said I have given a test, aptitude. What is aptitude? Capacity to acquire a skill after giving the training. I said your aptitude is very high for this job. Come, you come in my company and join. But whether your performance is actually better or not, when I will know? When you will work in my factory. So after 2 months, I have seen that your performance is very good. My test was telling he is a fit for that. Now this your performance is good. That information came me after 2 months. Now the criterion is not subsequently, it is available after a gap of time. This is your predictive validity. Clear? So concurrent if the available at the same time, predictive if it is available at the later. So APA test standards in 1974 differentiate between concurrent and predictive validity on the basis of time relations between the criterion and test, which I have told you. When two kinds of information, one from the test and other from the criterion, are obtained concurrently, that is at a very nearly the same point time, it is called concurrent, and when there is a time gap between these two information, it is called predictive. I have just explained to you. Anesthesia, now try to understand. Anesthesia has clarified the distinction of stating the logical distinction between predictive and concurrent validity is based not on time but on the objective of testing. Concurrent validity is relevant to tests employed for diagnosis of existing status rather than prediction of future outcomes. For example, is Mr. A neurotic? Is his personality neurotic? At the moment, it is concurrent. And is Mr. A likely to become neurotic? It is predictive. Now, anesthesia say the difference is not on the basis of the time. He says the difference is on the basis of purpose. If I want to know your present status, it is concurrent. If I want to know whether these conditions will make you this, it is predictive. Because whether the conditions are such that the person may develop anxiety, now after some time I will know whether anxiety is there in him or not. It is predictive. He has anxiety at the moment, it is concurrent. So APA has distinction on the basis of time, anesthesia on the basis of purpose. Now when you do a criterion, there is a danger of one factor you should keep in mind, and that is called criterion contamination. An essential precaution of finding the validity of a test is to make certain that the test scores do not themselves influence any individual's criterion status. For example, if a college instructor or a supervisor in an industrial plant knows that a particular individual scored very poorly on an aptitude test, such knowledge might influence the grade given to the student on the rating assigned to the working. This possible source of error in test validation is called criterion contamination. To prevent the operation of such error, it is absolutely essential that no person who participates in the assignment of criterion rating have any knowledge of the examiner's test scores. Now, criterion contamination. Who is providing the criterion? Not psychologist who has made the test. Criterion is providing someone else. I am making test to measure IQ. Criterion will be given by the teacher. Whether this is the best, this is second, this is third. I say, I am measuring your mechanical aptitude, but the supervisor will tell me that whether he has the high aptitude or low aptitude. Now, suppose teacher comes to know about my scores, that in my score, this boy has got the highest. Then there is a possibility under the influence that score, he may rate that student high, best, whereas actually he is not. It is called criterion contamination, because in test I can't do anything, but here he can manipulate so it should be kept confidential. My scores are in an envelope and his criterion is in an envelope. Do it and then match it whether it is validating or not. So when you are using this validity, you should keep in mind criterion contamination. Now, what are the different criterion to validate the test? Freeman 1963 has suggested following criteria to study the validity of personality inventories. For example, 1. Statistical differences between scores of a clinical well-defined scores groups. Now see, you have made a test for the diagnosis. You have clinical well-defined scores, you know, psychoneurosis, psychosis. Psychoneurosis, I have made a test in which anxiety, phobia, depression, hysteria will be measured. I have made another test in which schizophrenia, paranoia and manic depressive psychosis will be measured. Now, if I give you my first scale and the patient is of anxiety, then his score on anxiety must be higher than depression, obsession and compulsion. If he is getting equal score on anxiety, depression, hysteria and obsession, then what diagnosis I will do? That means my test is not valid. It is called intra-disease validity, intra-disease criterion. A anxiety patient should have high score on the anxiety scale irrespective of in comparison to the other scales of the same category. Inter-disease in comparison to the other category. Now, if I give I have made a scale schizophrenia. Now, a schizophrenic person will get higher score on schizophrenic scale, whereas that patient of depression or anxiety will not get high score on the schizophrenic. If anxiety patient is also getting high score on schizophrenic is also getting high score, then my test is how it can be valid. It is called inter-disease validity. So, statistically significant difference between scores of clinical well-defined group. Statistical average score difference between clinical and the normal population. I say my test is measured to diagnose depression. So, if I give a scale to my depressive patient and a normal patient, there must be difference between their scores. Statistically, normal person will get less and depressive patient should get higher. So, my criteria now is normal person. I have made a test to measure IQ. So, a genius person will get higher score and an average person will get low score. A mentally backward student will get less score. So, this is the comparison with the extreme group. It is another criteria. Ability of each item to differentiate between the two extreme groups in the standardization population. The scope, people who are getting high and who are getting extreme, high and low, items should differentiate. Comparison of test score with the judgment of the experts. What the experts has said, well, it is anxiety, whether it is measuring or not. So, criteria is judgment of the expert and correlation with other similar test. Now, I have already constructed a test of measuring anxiety. Now, you are also constructing a test to measure anxiety. If I have made a test of anxiety, it is not my monopoly. Anybody can in India or anywhere in the world can construct. Now, I have made a test and it is already in the use. It is valid. Now, you administer your test. In your test, the scores are parallel with my test. You administer my test on Mr. A and your test on Mr. A. If there is a parallel scores are obtained, that means your scores are valid because your test is a new one, where I have already constructed valid test. So, we can make comparison with the other available similar tests. So, these are some of the criteria which are suggested by the Freeman. Now, second is the construct validity. According to Cronbach and Meal, construct validation is an analysis of the meaning of test scores in terms of psychological concepts or constructs. Cronbach stressed that three parts in the construct validation. Number one, constructs possibly suggesting what accounts for test performance. Number two, deriving hypothesis from the theory involving the construct. Number C, third, testing the hypothesis empirically. So, construct validity means construction. The concept which you are going to measure is made of which constructs? Which constructs? Emotional intelligence is with the controlling of emotion, empathy and self motivation. Now, it is your theories telling. Now, you have made a hypothesis that emotional intelligent person will have higher empathy. Then test in the taking criteria a test whether it is measuring or not. So, in construct validity, we make the construct, take the hypothesis and then we test empirically. Lord and Novick 1968 have termed construct validity as theoretical validity. Theoretical validity because the validity coefficient is then the correlation of an observed variable with some theoretical construct, that is a latent variable of interest. Thus, it can be said that construct validity is one of the most significant advances of measurement theory and practice because it unites psychometric notion with the theoretical notion. Theoretical notion, what the concept is composed of. This room is composed of what? Brick, cement, this, that, construct of. So, theoretical and psychometric which we are measuring. So, that is why Lord and Novick said it as the theoretical validity, and it is determined by one of the technique that is called factorial analysis. And last is content validity. It involves systematic examination of the test content to determine whether it covers a representative sample of behavior domain to be measured. Generally, this validity is mostly applied to the achievement test. Whether the content which I have taken is for the purpose, is measuring what I want to measure, it is called content validity, and it starts building right from the beginning. I have said that it is mostly applicable to the achievement tests. Achievement tests are what? Your performance on a particular subject in a particular class. Now, I want to achievement the your knowledge, whatever you have learned, history of the 9th standard. So, items should be, all the items of the test should be from your syllabus, from your book of 9th standard history. So, whether that content is proper or not, that is called content validity, and this will determine in the item analysis. This way, we can say that the validity will be of broadly three types: criterion, then the construct and the content. If the test is not valid, please don't use it for the data collection, don't use in your research. A test must be valid, but whether test is valid or not, it is none of the job of the user, it is the job of the test constructor to report. And where we report, where we write in a small booklet that is called manual. So, in today's lecture, I have tried to explain what is validity, what is the importance of validity, and how validity measures and what types of validity there are. Thank you very much.